This is All the Things with Michelle Wolfe. I am joined today with Dr. Brent of Pain Relief Chiropractic. Thank you for being here with me. Tell me a little about yourself.
I'm a New Jersey kid. I grew up in Central Jersey, love Jersey Shore, just kind of a normal suburban kind of thing existence. However, despite all the normalcy of like, I like science, but I'm not good at math, and I play baseball. I have you know what I mean? Like I had normal stuff going on, but as far back as I can remember, I've always had the most wild questions in my brain. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And I would ask, and most of my family will tell stories about the kinds of questions and how often I asked questions when I was a kid. And I didn't know the answers. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't a
What
nerd.
kinds?
I wasn't a know-it-all kid. A lot of science, a lot of religion.
Okay.
I was always like, just like, what is this? Where are we? How does my eyeball work? You know what I mean? Like,
Yes, I do actually.
I would ask my mom, like, how do we know God exists? Like all things before I was 10 years old. And so, my whole life has really just been trying to answer those questions. So I filled myself with a lot of historical context of civilizations and societies and peoples in both scientific and it's mostly religious and spiritual up until a certain point. You have 2,000 years ago is when the science really starts to get good in our data, our recorded data. Obviously, there's a science way before our data started being recorded because we don't know how some of the things happened before we were here. So, just the pyramids, for example. All right. So yeah, eternal question asker and seeker. Yeah.
And did that lead you to what you like? Were there other things, or did you always sort of know, like, I want to do this? Like, what got you into chiropractic care?
Mm. Chiropractic is like that's my serving arm of all of it, but but that general essence got me to Sufism. Sufism is really the spirituality. It's not really a religion or anything. It's not, but it is the gathering of seekers and people who find.
It's like a worldview, right?
Yeah, there's a worldview, but also you can destroy the world in Sufism. It doesn't matter, because it's an eternal view. A lot of people are afraid to use the word God, especially, and in Sufism, they'll use every name of God. But the beginning and the end, both my sun or my ascending and my moon sign, Aquarius, and the beginning and end has always been this Sufism, radical, raw. I'm a child Sufi, and then a much more refined Sufi as I age, which is like nothing matters anymore. So let's just sing and dance and pray and have a good time doing it, and that's it, and love ourselves. And but chiropractic is like the service branch of all of this.
Okay.
Because it has this essence of both the natural and the science involved. It's nature and nurture. And that's what makes chiropractic so special is that it is the bridge between Eastern and Western medicines. Eastern
I
medicine.
do see it that way. Yeah.
I'm glad that you see it that way. That means you're seeing it accurately because that's the way that it is. Yes. But if you naturally came to that conclusion just based on what a lot of chiropractors say or what you read it from, then you've concluded correctly.
But you have a different flavor because I mean, I've gone to chiropractors for a long time, and I feel like you're the first one that, like, you do have a more like an energetic approach. Like it feels like a holistic approach, right? Because we are electromagnetic beings. So most chiropractors that I've been to in the past, like you had to go in, you get some of them required X-rays first and all the stuff, you know. But you just have a very different approach.
Sure. Chiropractic was founded on an Eastern energetic approach. The whole thing was, it was mechanical turned energy, neurological energy.
I like that.
Yeah, the founding principle of chiropractic, and people have been cracking people's backs for thousands of years, but in 1895, when D.D. Palmer cracked a back and restored someone's healing temporarily, the summation or the hypothesis was that it's nerve energy that we're correcting. Well, because we cracked the back and the spine is right there, it must have had something to do with the brain and the nervous system. And so that's a solid, physical type of energy, the nervous energy. You can measure it in multiple different ways, electrically and magnetically, but not electromagnetically as one, but in separate forms. Electric, there's actual electric
Like
amperage.
pulse, yeah.
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 Not as cardiovascular pulse, but
I was thinking about it in current.
yeah,
Current.
current, yes. Yeah. Like the action potential, which is electricity inside the brain, is the same electricity as what in the walls. It's hydrogen atoms, and our body creates it.
I know, it's so cool.
Yes.
Our bodies are amazing. I mean, I am often in awe, you know. Some of that came from an injury because, when you go through something and you can see, well, my ankle and my leg, like, that was definitely humbling, but also like, wow, our bodies are amazing.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mm.
wild. Yeah, so, yeah, injuries and many times trauma are blessings and learning opportunities for sure, ironically. But, the wounded healer is an archetype.
Yeah.
So most healers have that. Anyway, the whole thing oh yeah, so chiropractic is the bridge. And so in the beginning, chiropractic was very neurological based, and then through the 60s and 70s, it started to develop into even more energy off the body. Network analysis is the most popular chiropractic energy technique, and it's
Can you explain that?
yeah, network chiropractic is like it's Reiki. There's no cracking, you make adjustments from remote, I've seen other kind of energy practitioners, they make adjustments from like the next room over, and they're doing, I don't know. I don't know if there's a word for that, but many studies show, not many studies, but there are studies and there is evidence that, when two people entrain with each other and then they separate from each other, they remain entrained, and their brain patterns and brain waves and even their cardiovascular rhythms
Sync up.
remain in sync after they separate.
Is there like a period of time?
Mm.
Right.
I think it would probably vary for
Yeah.
everybody, but
I'm done. But I'm just curious.
here's the thing is that it really shouldn't, because in quantum it's non-local correlation, so it really shouldn't matter how far away you go from someone, because distance doesn't matter. And if distance doesn't matter, then theoretically time wouldn't matter either.
Although sometimes I struggle with distance doesn't matter because I do feel like when we are in presence, right? Like I feel like it's more powerful.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, sure. It's very easy to be stimulated in this way.
sure.
I mean, this is all external stimuli. But if there's something that all of the greatest gurus on this planet have said, is that it's always coming from internal. And so if you can find that same vibration internally, not from yourself, but from the thing that's inside of you that's not Brent, not Brent, not a chiropractor. There's no identity. You have to rip off every single label there is. Getting in touch with that will have that same
Your
effect.
like core essence,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is an energy. Like to me, it feels like an energy.
Sure.
I feel it's like a ball of energy. Like we all have that. Like we're all like little balls of energy walking around, and we affect each other in different ways.
Yeah, I would say the ball is not little though. It's actually a tremendous size. Yeah. Like
and bigger than us.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because even so, like heart energy, what is it? Like heart energy resonance is like 5 feet out of the body, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can measure the electromagnetic field for a couple feet away from the body for sure. And those electromagnetic fields entangle.
And I'm excited for, like, we've made so many advancements in technology in the last, I don't know, 50 years, right? And even in the last 20 years, the last 10 years. And it's like exponential, I feel. So I'm excited for where we go in the future from here, where we're already measuring things like sound waves and vibration and all that stuff. But I'm excited and with the addition of AI too, because we can model things that we couldn't before. So,
And quantum computing is going to be important. Now, it's going to be crazy because like it, it's almost like the Eastern and Western advance together. And sometimes one foot in front of the other, but like they kind of go like this, but they're both moving. And so what that means is that as our technology increases, our physical computer technology increases, our internal biological technology will increase too. And you know, we have now so much evidence because everyone has a cell phone and a camera of humans doing incredible things, things that you wouldn't think that humans can do. And so, there's a couple movies now about like the potential of the brain. I forget what they're called, but like one has the Lucy chick and they're trying to smuggle some drug and it leaks inside of her and it turns on 100% of her brain. And so like I'm not saying that's true, but I think
but we don't use our entire like, so a lot of times I think, so it's like inner and outer micro macro. So like, our brains are what, 90 something percent gray matter, right? We only use a small portion of the matter in our brain. And the universe is like how much percent dark matter or whatever it's called. So,
yeah, the 80/20
yeah.
principle. Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely some truth to that. That whole we only use 10% of our brains kind of thing. I don't know how much of that is actually accurate. I mean, I've seen all the neurological maps of like what every single that's what I did for 6 months was slice a brain and then look at it and go, "Okay, corpus callosum there, that's the ear pons intermediate." So it's like we've named and identified and derived the function of every single space in the brain for sure. And then, but what we don't know is how it's integrated to make consciousness. You know what I mean? Like there's a map for it where everyone's like, okay, we're pretty sure that it comes in the eyes and then it goes to basal ganglia. And like there's this big map and it's complicated and it basically looks like circuit boards and like the squares with all the little different parts. And then we've got the maps with all the neurons that are connecting. But like, huh, well, when we're looking at how a brain works on a functional MRI, you know what I mean? We
Like
don't,
what gets rid of
we just see glucose being burned. That's it. We just see metabolism inside of a neuron, and we see, negative 43 millivolts, action potential, and it goes from here, and it goes to here, and then we go blue. You know what I mean? Or like that hurts. You know what I mean? But we have no idea. So I think
and
maybe
people
understand
see too. Like we see, there's so much that we don't see, right? That's happening with the time. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yes, invisible waves of energy. This is, how many invisible waves of energy. And so, like for the brain, maybe we only know how 10% of it is functioning. It's the same thing with DNA. They did the same thing in the 90s when they were like, we figured out the genetic code. You know what I mean? Actually, it was the Human Genome Project where it was very right. And they were like, it's going to take 20 years to do this, but it took 2. And they were like, oh, we figured it out. It's so simple. But they said that 90% of the DNA was junk DNA. That's it. We only use 10%. And that existed for like more than a decade. Scientists were like, junk DNA. And like, you know what I mean? Like mainstream academia in the 2000s
Mhm.
had such a ridiculous idea of what DNA was doing. And like, it didn't take that long, but it took enough people who were like, listen, can we
So,
think about
again,
this for a second?
that's what I love about science. Like people will talk shit about science, and I get that there's been, like a lot of political stuff in the last so many years and things. But what I love about science, where I'll always feel like I'm a scientist, is it's all about testing. It's constant testing. And if you're not testing,
Mhm.
you're not really doing it because that's it. That's the scientific method.
It's true.
It's test and confirm, test and confirm.
Yeah.
So,
Test, don't guess for sure.
and then as we, advance, like we test again because it might change.
Yeah. So the scientists figured out that is that the 90% of junk DNA was actually regulatory DNA. They were like, this is the stuff that's actually making the other 10% happen, which is most likely what's happening in the brain. Okay, we have structures, 10%, 90% an electromagnetic function, which we don't know. And then it's the same thing with the dark matter and matter in space. Okay, most of it's dark matter. Okay, well, this all seems pretty real and important, but yet there's this dark matter underneath of all of it. So, so yeah, it's
It
about
feels
what
like
you
it's
don't see.
the frame to me,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah. 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 This could very much just be a frame, and it could be a supportive structure for sure. That it's apparently, from what I've read about extra dimensional entities, is that like there is this like contrite or not contrite, contrived. I don't want to say jealousy because it's as a human thing, but like that humans are unaware of what we are. Like I don't want to say like they're jealous of us,
Seen by that.
but like you know how like angels, like look at the movies, like angels want to become human. Well, they're eternal beings who can fly, and they want to be like I want to be human so I can eat a donut. You know what I mean? Like there is something about this dimension of reality that exists beyond the invisible ways. But like you said, it's all about right now what we can see. But how many things do we use that don't see, that we can't see?
All the time.
5G Wi-Fi, radio waves, microwaves. You know what I mean? Like how much further? Like we can't see sound either. Oh no, but we can hear. You know what I mean? So if you're going past the sensation, okay, and this is where science stops, because when you measure something, that
So
changes the way
Mhm.
that, for years everyone's been like, okay, atoms or electrons are waves. And then when you look at it, it becomes a particle. You collapse the wave nature into a particle. It's not, we don't know that. We're not looking at it. We don't have anything that can see that small. But what we do know is that when you're looking for an electron, that the probability of finding it is you're better to use it if you have to calculate it as if it were a wave. And so you can't assume that electrons are there with our senses. You know what I mean? You have to you have to postulate using what we know about how waves move to say, okay, well that means the potential is spread out versus it's not here, it's here. And so that opens up
expand.
bandwidth, potential, that's
And expand,
possibility.
I think, our perception, right?
How?
Well, because when you make that room, like it like expands the space, and then I feel like that expands our perception of like what's available, you know? Because you can't see it maybe in this little thing, but when you like zoom out, then yeah.
Yeah, probably one of the biggest mistakes that we make, either as individuals or as society, is when we think that we know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
One of the most liberating things I think I ever did for myself was deciding that I can never possibly know all that I don't know.
Right.
There's so much.
You don't know.
But that makes me like instead of feeling like some sort of way about that, that makes me like happy. It like takes the load off. That I don't have to like consume all this information. It's just all available. Y-
Awesome. Good for you.
Yeah.
Doesn't that feel good?
So
I'm glad that you don't have to worry about that anymore. It's good. I am.
for somebody who used to really like to be right, like I don't ever feel like I need to be right.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, but also I really enjoy different perspectives. So
Good.
so when you're doing like an adjustment, and I'll talk about me because you work on me, like sometimes like when you crack my neck, I can feel like, obviously I can feel the energy like move through me, but like you'll pull back and I can tell that like something has happened for you. So I'm curious about that.
Oh.
Like what that's like for you to intermingle with someone's energy like that.
Oh, yeah. I it's not an intermingling of energy. That's so much. I mean, first of all, a lot of things can happen when I adjust. I mean, like, like infinite possibility of things could happen. Whoa, I just had a vision of, like, some cupcakes or something. They were like, I just ate cupcakes before this. That's weird because I just saw it when I cracked your neck. Like, wild things happen. That was a terrible example, and cool things have happened, and that was the least coolest thing I could possibly say. But I try. I don't have one off the top of my
Yeah.
head, but yeah, there they are.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Okay. So, uh, okay. But to answer the question about what's happening there for me and like the pulling away, the intermingling energy. Oh,
Or just like when you are doing like an adjustment and there is like a big movement there. Like I'm curious
oh,
how that I can only speak like when I'm doing work on others, when I do Reiki for others or, I'm moving, like, I can feel things.
yeah, yeah. Well, like, what do you feel?
Well, I mean, like if I'm working on somebody and they have gut issues or like trauma or things, like I'll feel stuff in my body. Yeah. I get images and things like that. So,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, so then that it's really anything can show up in those moments, you know? And so my practices are just to stay present,
mhm.
in those moments and to stay present with what shows up. So even if I do crack something big or if there's big movement, I'm ready for the next thing to show up too.
Was
Just
there like you've done this so much that like you can be like a grounding presence.
oh yeah. Yeah, I've got some grounding. But it's seeing what shows up is the manifestation of the energy. The invisible waves are still becoming visible.
Mm.
And like all the sensations that we have are still valid. I mean, that's why science is important because it recognizes our ability to observe, which is actually a very spiritual thing is to, where you're meditating and then you're like, oh, these thoughts are coming in. They're not my thoughts. I don't, and you go back.
Yep.
And that's what science is essentially doing that same thing. And so we've taken a very, very advanced concept of, I don't know if you would call mindfulness spirituality. I think it is, but you take a very advanced mindfulness concept, and basically that's how you're conducting experiments and recording data. And so, like in the moments that are happening, of course, I record data, but also too, what shows up invisibly is probably the most important thing that happens. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Of course, the mechanics, I need to know he's got a high left shoulder and I cracked it there and it was good and that was too tight over there. Of course, I write all those things down because I still live in a three-dimensional reality. And so, however, all of the moments that you're aware of, you know what I mean? You're very aware of the energy because you practice energy. But like I do that all day long. Most people don't realize it. And so I think that is probably one of the most challenging things is, I'll say to people a lot, like, is this too much for you? You know what I mean? I'm not talking about my pressure points. You know what I mean? I'm talking about like, I just said something like, this is a mirror and you're really looking at yourself right now. Can you handle that? You know what I mean? Or like, do you know that this internal thing that you had that you're dealing with is really just you? When people were like, "What else can I do? What else can I do?" And I'm like, "I think you need to do less." You know what I mean? And so there's some really big, profound things that hopefully someone just goes, "Oh, okay, yeah," and they just go do it, and that's always the best. You don't think about it too much. A little bit of non-attachment goes a long way.
Absolutely. Especially, I mean, it would be different if you advertise in such a way that like you were specifically doing like, I mean, chiropractics, but you were like, oh, I'm also doing this stuff and there's this energy aspect to it. And so that you would have a certain group of people that showed up for that. And you do still because I'm very sensitive and I like coming to you because of that. But when you have other people who just come to the chiropractor, right? Like the same chiropractor, what we would think of. Like, I imagine that is challenging in what you want to be able to share, you know,
Mhm.
with people and what they're ready for.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It just depends on more people. It's not challenging anymore. It used to be because I wanted everyone to be on a certain level, but now it's much easier now because some people don't really want to go anywhere or need to go anywhere. They're content and
Just
maybe
coming in, getting an adjustment and
exactly
yeah.
that time. You know what I mean? Maybe in future it won't be that way.
And then we did talk a little bit about we talked about relationships when we were talking last time. Um,
But hold on, we should end the energy conversation. Corey, we on, yeah. Oh, okay. All right. The floor is mine. Okay. All right. What I say a lot is that everyone's doing Reiki all the time.
yeah.
Like we have no choice. And then the main difference in that practice is intentionality. And so like if you're familiar with the Waldorf schools, right? Like
Mm.
Waldorf, this is all like Rudolf Steiner stuff. This is anthropophosophy. I think it's like anthropophosophy. I forget. I can never pronounce this word right.
What?
It's not anthropology, it's anthropophosophy. Uh,
No, I haven't heard of that.
All right, so Rudolph Steiner. So I was like blown away when I went into this school, and like she was doing a puppet show, like a hand puppet show. And she would move like this, and you can just see her so intentionally. And all the kids were just riveted. You're talking about like kindergarten age kids. They were just couldn't even believe what they were seeing. It was some hand puppets. These are kids who have screens and, whatever, whatever. And man, her intention was so pure. And I just saw recently, can't believe everything you see on the internet, but there was one guy, it looked like a 1980s interview, 1980s, 1990s, and this guy was just energy healing people and like world-renowned energy healer. And like the guy asked him like, can anyone do this? Or, are you special or what? And he just said, meditate every day. And so, meditate, or spiritually speaking, you surrender. And if you just continue to, give everything that normally you would do to feed the sensations and the things that we want to activate us, like you said, being in person, you know what I mean? Like if you could surrender the things that activate the five senses, then you get that sixth sense activated, is what I've seen, what apparently I'm connecting all these points to. And so like energetically in a practice, even the most stark, strict, prude medical doctor can be practicing Reiki if he's just present with his patients and then very intentfully writing down what he says, what they say, and then giving a prescription medication. You can give a pharmaceutical medication to someone and it can have Reiki in it if they were, this is why they do placebo effects. This is why they do a double-blind placebo, because a patient goes, this is the placebo, and it doesn't work. But when a doctor in their mind, okay, double-blind means the patient doesn't know and the doctor doesn't know. If the doctor knows in their mind, this is the placebo, not gonna work, just in their mind, it changes the outcome of the study. So you have to double-blind studies and randomize it.
It reminds me of law of assumption too.
Okay.
Are you familiar?
Very nice. I'm assuming.
But it is like it's similar. Like if you have the assumption that this isn't going to work, that's the energy that you're infusing with that thing, right? Similar, same thing.
Yeah. So it's interesting how like all of these things would equate to the wisdom that we build up. All the books that you can go read about wisdom. And science very particularly has to put all these things in order to, in order to even create science. Like, look at all the things that we have to do to double blind, randomized, and then do randomized controlled trials. What'd you say?
Validation.
What do you mean validation?
Oh, I mean, when we do experiments and then we have to validate the result.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's like, it's interesting how the wisdom is there, but in order to see around the wisdom and to know more about the wisdom, we've had to separate everything. And, you go from a unity consciousness to a multi spectrum poly, whatever. And so basically what you're saying is that like, okay, we can break everything up into one. And if you look around, this isn't one thing, you know what I mean? There are billions and billions of entities right outside the window. We're taking bacteria into account, just, oh my God, this right here. And I mean, like, talking about the numbers is almost unfathomable. And, have you ever heard this one? Like, if you're going to count to 1,000,000, it would take you, like 13 days or something. And if you were going to count to 1,000,000,000, it takes like 30 years. Like, that's how much more 1,000,000,000 is in 1,000,000.
Mm-hmm.
And 1,000,000,000,000, it would take you 3,000 years to count to 1,000,000,000,000. 1, 2, right? So like when I say, okay, well, there's 500 trillion cells in your body. And like, our brains just go, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, we don't really think about how much that is, 500 trillion cells.
And the fact that they regenerate and do all the things that they do. So yeah.
Yeah, every cell does 100,000 things at every second. It's 100,000 things in every cell, every single reaction. And like,
well, there's like an entire universe in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it becomes like, we accept it and our mind is dulled to the vividness of the numbers of life, because for as far big as the macrocosm goes and as far small as the microcosm goes, we're just in the middle,
Mm.
and we're like, I'm hungry, we're just trying to live a life here, and hold on, and so hold on, what was the point? I got to bring that back in.
The energy.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so the energy. Oh no, I might have lost it. I might have lost it in the. Okay, so I was talking about. Oh, okay, so the trillions. Okay, if we were talking about the trillions, how many different entities there are. Yeah, good. I think it's a perfect way to end it. It's just to be like, who even knows what else up?
We need
How do we know?
the energy conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, I know. It doesn't mean I. That was the beginning of that, and then I was winding it up to there, I guess there really is no conclusion is I mean,
Well, everything I maybe the conclusion is everything is energy, and it is all the time.
well, that's true.
So, and we have all these different modalities and ways to access that. You were talking about how we're all doing Reiki.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Okay. And then so okay, it's really good because it almost brings it like to the center of like, okay, well, we have science, but we have all this wisdom too. And so like, how do we walk one foot in front of the other? You use a little bit of one, other little bit of the other. And so I'm open to possibilities, and I think that not putting a conclusion on my thoughts is the best way to end it, really.
I am curious. So, like, I mean, because I'm a Reiki practitioner, when you work on me, um, do you feel like, I mean, sometimes I'm just sending you love. Like, do you feel that?
Not particularly.
No. Do you have like, sort of like protection around yourself to like keep yourself from,
No, no, open vessel is the best way to go. I don't believe it's not that I don't believe in it, but I advise against trying to protect yourself from things as a healer because whatever you resist persists. Anything you try to push away will come back harder.
I never feel a need to protect myself. Yeah, I just feel safe. So I don't,
Yeah.
um,
The key is also the healthier and more balanced you are, the more I mean, this is true for any job, especially the ones where you work with people, but like if something's off in my personal life when I come into work, it's a lot harder to be present with people
sure.
and to be there for all the things. They're like, "Oh, my neck hurts today." I'm like, "Yeah, well, so is mine." You know what I mean? No, of course I would never say that. But that's what it feels like. It's just like, "Ah, God, everyone's complaining today." You know what I mean? Like, this is very rare. This is like when I was getting divorced. You know what I mean? That's the only time that I was just like, I can't."
Well, but we all have that. I mean, we all have things that we carry with us into whatever aspects of our lives, job, health, all of it.
Yeah, sure.
Right? It's all mixed in.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't necessarily feel the things that people are I
Like, do you feel the stuff that people come in with?
no, I feel what I need to feel, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And I'm very particular about the field, you know what I mean? So the field that's around us all the time, which I work on. I work in the field. Like I need like when someone walks through the field, I need it to let go of. I need the field to wipe them clean of the last 12 hours. You know what I mean? Like I need to see deeper, okay? And then like or I'll ask the field around like what's has been circulating the longest, you know what I mean? Like, what happened to them when they were 2, and now here it comes back every 7 years or every 12 years or whatever it is, because there's so many cycles and there's so many things. So the thing that I feel is what I ask for, which is the most important thing that I need to know, that I need to tell this person, you know what I mean?
Today.
Yeah. So sure, yeah. So if you're sending me love, like
I'm like, because when you'll like work on my neck back here, and that seems to be like the time that I can feel your Reiki energy the most. So I'm always just like, oh, thank you. And I just send you love.
back up through my fingers.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. But let's talk about your channel. So you have a couple channels.
Mhm.
Do you want to tell me about?
My first channel, chiropractic medicine, was built with the intention to create a therapeutic entity, a therapeutic realm. I had, you know,
Educational?
yeah. Do you know?
Yeah.
No, no, not educational. It was never about education.
Okay.
It was 100% therapeutic entertainment. All right, I'm trying to think. Kevin Koa was the last name. Kevin sings songs. You know Kevin?
Yeah,
Well, Kevin was a patient of mine, and he was like,
I love him.
yeah, he's amazing, yeah. But he was like, I watch chiropractic videos to go to bed at night. And he wasn't the first person to say that to me, but like he was the second person, and he was a younger guy who I was just like, you're the second person. Please tell me what the hell you're talking about. Because other than the fact that the chiropractic videos are boring, I don't see why. And he's just like, there's something about a long video with not a lot of talking, something in the clinical setting. There's something about hands-on body work, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? I didn't even think about it again. I had another patient who was like, she was like, you have to do this. You have to see this one chiropractor. You should be making YouTube channels. I remember I was dating someone at the time and she was just like, what are you doing? Why don't you like, blah, 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 blah. You always have something to say, blah, 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 blah. Why don't you say it for people? And I'm like, and I still don't really talk on many of my channels, but, um, so then I found an ASMR chiropractic video and I read all the comments and I was just like, wow, people are using these videos therapeutically. Like hearing the cracking sounds has a therapeutic effect.
I like it too.
Yeah, mirror neurons and empathy and and the ASMR response, which is very closely related to a physiological mechanism called frisson, which is like how your brain anticipates things and then creates internal sensations. And so, you know, so I very quickly just studied like the YouTube scene and was just like, okay, ASMR, here are the chiropractors doing this and that. And like it was pretty obvious to me what kinds of things people were looking for. And so I just started making videos and I was like, I didn't want to talk. I was like, if people want cracking video, I could just make cracking videos. There's no problem. We'll crack all day. As long as I don't have to say anything and don't put me in the videos, like crack, crack, just make it my hands. But then people ask questions and people want to see more and like slowly, I guess, slowly gained confidence enough to be like, all right, I'll get 'em, okay. But like, I still always wanted to make quiet videos. So I just use subtitles. And when I'm recording, I'm very intentional about how I'm talking. You know, because you've been in the room with me. Sometimes I'm yelling, sometimes I'm yelling at you. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? I get very excited. I'm very energetic. And
You are very energetic.
so making quiet ASMR videos was a challenge in the beginning, but you know, it's been 5 years almost, so it's evolved a lot.
The one that we made was fun,
It was great.
which I was, like, kinda nervous about, and I wasn't
Mhm.
feeling good at all.
Oh, no, you felt
Oh my god, that was awful. Um, but actually that was kind of fun, just even because, like, of the things that you incorporated. I didn't like that, what's that, like, crackly paper thing? I don't like that, but I know other people do, so
it oh,
my
first of all, I always use crackly paper.
I know I don't
It's like the standard in the office, this crackly paper. It's the non-crackly paper that's the special thing that didn't even exist in very old.
the one that you put it was, like, something that you put under my head as you were, like, working on my
Yeah, it's to make it cracky.
yeah.
Yeah, well, what happens is when I make an ASMR video, first I put in non-crack crinkly paper, okay? This is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever done in my life that's gotten the most attention, okay? But it was something that people complained about all the time, was like, "We can't hear the cracking noises with the paper, it's so loud." So I was like, "Done." Hey, so I ordered some non-crinkly paper, and, like, when I make an ASMR video, I always start it with that. But then one day I made a video and I forgot to take that put that paper in, and I was doing the neck traction, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, that was the greatest thing ever." So ever since then, I make non-crinkly neck paper 90% of the video, and then when I do the neck traction, I put the crinkles in.
There he is. Oh,
It's ridiculous, but enough. But like when someone goes, "Oh, thanks for the traction paper," and then 300 people like it, I go, 300 people. That's more patients than I saw this week,
yeah.
but 300 people appreciated that. That's a big deal, and that's not
Isn't
even.
that interesting, though? I feel like that it must be like a I don't know, I would think it would be like a journey. It'd be really interesting to see, like, what people like, especially because that isn't a world that you really came from. So you just kind
What,
of
the ASMR one?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It's like trial and error
yeah.
based on what everybody said, based on their feedback.
Well, I've actually tried to evolve the ASMR community a little bit because, like, everyone would be very particular of like, "Why didn't you do it like this?" And it's like, you can't do it the same way every time because part of ASMR is about what your brain's expecting, right? It's like jazz music, you know what I mean? It's the tempo is sporadic. No, the tempo is not sporadic. But um, the timbre, was it timbre? No. Mm, I don't know what you would call it. It's not the rhythm, cadence. Um, I think it's the melodies. I think it may just be the melodies that are sporadic, and so like your brain counts music most of the time. You know what I mean? Like music is math. It's just music is math, and so for the most part, your brain can predict it and be like, you know where that next note's going, even if you've never even heard the song. Your brain knows what to do. It's amazing. But in jazz, it's different. You can't always predict that next note. And so your brain goes, what's it going to be? And then when it is or is not, then it just satisfies that part of your brain. And so ASMR is similar because people are anticipating something, but some people get stimulated by seeing what they think is going to happen. Other people are stimulated by seeing something that they didn't think was going to happen. So you can't stimulate everybody. It's
No,
just what it is. So I've always tried to evolve the scene has been like, well, first of all, everybody, I'm also doing chiropractic here. You know what I mean? But I edit these videos to be ASMR specifically.
yeah.
However, it's fun to mix it up and it's important with the therapeutic effect. Now, if someone just turns on my video and they're just listening to it while they're trying to go to bed or they're listening to it in the background, you know what I mean? Then it's a whole different ballgame. They're not even watching the video. They're
I've
just
seen some comments where like there will be people who are asking questions. Like that's why I asked if it was educational because there'll be people asking questions about like there's somebody asked something about mine, something to do with my migraine,
Mhm.
and I don't know. So do you get a lot of that?
Sure. Yeah. I answer as many questions as I possibly can. Yeah. Yeah, it's partly educational now, I mean, of course.
Is that part of your evolution? Because that isn't how it started.
Uh,
But you talked a little bit on mine, and I've seen you talk on others too.
yeah, that's primarily why that's why there's a second channel now, so that I can feel free to talk more and I can feel free to bang the table, you know what I mean? Like, there's no like, in the first channel, there's always the top concern is always people are trying to fall asleep, people are trying to relax. We can't just have crazy things
Yeah,
happening
sure.
towards the end of a video. So,
Is that why you edited out my laughing fit?
probably, yeah,
I love that though. I've done that a couple times.
yeah, it's great medicine when
It is good
yeah,
fun.
yeah. But
Um, do you incorporate like, do you purposely now incorporate ASMR into your practice? Like, now that you see, like, there's some benefit?
yeah, you can't do that, so that's not a possibility. Um, because because, because ASMR is a visual anticipatory thing.
Okay.
It's not the same as experiencing it. Like, me touching I'm a
It's not
chiropractor.
auditory?
No, it is auditory.
Yeah.
It's an auditory visual experience.
Yeah.
So
Like, there's sometimes where you're working on me, but you're doing something else and some kinda like you don't know what it is, but
yeah, that's not ASMR, that's shamanic. See, the whole thing is like,
okay.
I'm not the whole thing is everything that I do that's good for ASMR is I've been doing those things forever. You know, using the rhythm of my hands, having sounds with my voice that are not planned and
Yeah.
not, purposeful and intentful.
I guess that's why I'm surprised that, like, that wasn't, like, an intentional thing that you did, that
No, I
kind of just
very
came to you.
I edit out a lot of what I do
Okay.
shamanically because I'm not ready for everyone to see everything that I do all the time. But I've been having a ball for a year. Like, my entire practice has always been people face down, so I could do whatever, like, I want because no one's looking at me, right? But then once the camera turned on, I was, like, very conservative. But I've just taken enough psychedelics and seen enough of the unseen to know that it's more than just my hand and a spine.
So, I mean, again, another difference between I mean, well, not I would say what am I gonna say here? Chiropractors that I have seen in the past, I mean, they generally are, I feel like, more holistic and they're not really like they're not really about like taking anti-inflammatories and things like that. They're much more like you should look into these herbs or these supplements or these things. Do you like do you recommend, like if you have somebody who's got like trauma or do you just have like something that like maybe this thing would be beneficial to them? Like do you prescribe? Maybe that's not the right word, but you know what
Mm.
I'm asking.
Yeah, I do, but I can't we can't talk about that on record.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's extremely, extremely rare that I'll ask someone the question, "Have you ever taken any psychedelics?" But it'll change. Okay, so here's how I would answer that question. Um, in the future, psychedelics will be a part of many different types
Oh, we've already
of
made
medicine practice. Yeah.
progress.
I mean, yeah, we're testing it right now, and there are practitioners. I mean, like you can get the psychedelic assisted, therapy, blah blah blah. But
And that is a much more common thing now.
oh yeah, I know.
So,
Like I follow like 3 people who have it on Instagram. From I mean, like they have the certification. They're on Instagram and they're local.
but now that in general, like drugs are being sort of like tested or brought up for review and declassified in certain areas. I mean, I am excited. The scientist in me is very excited for all that we're going to learn, even just from, the legalization of marijuana. Like now that we can like do experiments and test and see like how, it affects our whole entire system. I mean, I love that. So,
Yeah, the research is pretty conclusive that it's going to be a big help for
mm,
humans. So like, but the difference between like, okay, so someone has severe depression, okay, then they get on an antidepressant, they feel good. You know what I mean? Medicine works for some people some of the time, but someone who has no depression,
like, what if we get
hold on, I finish. Hold on.
something?
You have someone who has no depression, that antidepressant can severely hurt them.
Yeah.
And all psychotropic pharmaceuticals can severely hurt people. As a matter of fact, there's not been one school shooting where a school shooter has not been on psychotropic medications. Not one. Or coming off of them. So
They haven't been involved in some way.
right. So but the difference between psychedelics, like ayahuasca or mushrooms, is that you can take a perfectly healthy person and you can give them a healthy dose of that medicine and still have profound effects.
Mhm.
Because it's more than just physical health thing. It has it's tough to say spiritual in a scientific concept, but context, but they call it mystical
Mm.
experiences.
Yeah, it feels like it removes a layer. It removes the veil.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that.
The benefits of that. Do you generally lead people more towards like supplements than say, I mean, I've asked you this before about like Advil and stuff because I've had, concerns about taking too much Advil and I think at one point you were like, it's fine, you know? Um,
Yeah, if your head hurts and your brain's about to explode and you don't have anything else, and you take over the counter. I mean, it depends on which one it is and who's in front of me. You know what I mean? There's just some people who I know, like, oh, you already have ibuprofen at home, and you don't really care if I start explaining to you about the anti-inflammatory properties of
mhm.
turmeric. You know what I mean? It just doesn't matter to some people. They don't care. Other people beg, please, I don't want to take an Advil. Please, all right, just take some turmeric. It'll be okay. It's anti-inflammatory, and if it works, you could take this much, and you could take more, and then if it doesn't work and it still hurts and you have to take an Advil, you gotta do what you gotta do. One Advil's not gonna hurt. It's taking Advil every day for 20 years that kills your liver and your guts. I probably wouldn't take 20 years, actually. Years probably about enough. But it depends on, some things like, 30% of all pharmaceuticals come from botanical science anyway. I'm trying to think. Salicylic acid is what we get from white willow. That's it's aspirin. It's just sometimes a concentrated dose of a particular ingredient will work better, but sometimes you need all the ingredients from the white willow. You know what I mean? There's synergistic
That
couple.
you take such a holistic approach.
Well, thank you.
I do, because it's not, I mean, I've met some chiropractors who are like very much against taking any kind of medication.
Oh yeah,
So I appreciate that you are inclusive
yeah, sure, yeah,
of all the things because you have a very holistic approach to life in general.
yeah.
And that you can make that connection that like, medication did stem from these things, even though it went through a chemical process or whatever that changed it, but still.
Thanks.
Anything else you want to talk about? Anything you're working on? Anything new coming up?
Yeah, teaching. I am very focused in becoming a teacher because the quality of chiropractic worldwide is poor. And there's no reason,
Why do you feel that way?
because people get on airplanes and drive hundreds of miles to come to my practice. And there are some things that I do that are special, and there are certainly some people who really couldn't have been anywhere else. But that's also the same for many chiropractors. You know what I mean? Sometimes the best chiropractor is just whoever that person needs, not necessarily the person who you have to get on a plane. But I understand that people see me, and then it creates a type of um, relationship, a type of confidence, and type of trust. So, any chiropractor on YouTube, really, you see them, it creates trust and confidence. And so that's important. And also to, like the decompression move that I do, there's only 30 chiropractors who do that, and that should change too. And so really it's just, sometimes I'm just doing basic things on people and they go, wow, I've been to 5 chiropractors and none of them did this. None of them looked at your spine without a shirt on. You know what I mean? I get angry. You know what I mean? I can feel anger inside of me, and that's okay, because that kind of chiropractic works for some people, but people deserve more and people deserve better chiropractic than what's available. And so I have to do that. That's my current mission.
Okay, so teaching, what does that look like?
It looks like creation of videos that can be disseminated worldwide. I mean, that's the ultimate goal. Of course, I teach in person too.
You travel and teach?
Yep.
You travel, you've done European travel, right? And study.
Yep. Not study. I never studied over there. We just taught that.
Okay.
But but yeah, I'm going to continue to do that. They're very receptive, and they don't have nearly as good of a education in European countries for chiropractic. It's a 2 years master's degree versus a 4-year doctorate degree. So there's sometimes I meet a European and they're impressed, like, wow, you know more of this technique than I do. You know what I mean? Some of them are really, but because American chiropractors have gone over there and start teaching. And so I don't see myself permanently taking up residence, although you never know. But for sure, they're open in Europe. Yeah. Teaching chiropractors here is a little tougher.
Why?
I don't know. It's a mentality.
Hmm. They're just not as open.
Mm, I don't know. I don't know what it is. Everyone's different, you know what I mean? For you keep saying holistic, but I really feel like my religion is the religion of the individual. Like whoever the hell's in front of me, that's my religion. I'm not trying to please everybody, but I'm trying to say, like,
Begin start.
everyone's different. You know what I mean? And not only is everyone different, but you change as you as you grow. But parts of you are always the same. So it's like there's
I know we're just walking dichotomies all the time.
yeah, exactly.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a I forget where that was going, but yeah,
Well, we were talking about teaching
yeah. Okay, walking
and
dichotomy stuff.
people here being, chiropractors here not being,
Yeah.
potentially maybe not being as open.
Yeah, so that's the right now project,
Mhm.
but 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 eventually I have intentions uh to create peace and harmony internally for people, and not just their spine and their brain or their nutrition, just
Okay.
yeah, a different.
You wanna expand on it?
Yeah, I think frequency and vibration are the future of medicine. And yeah, that's Tesla talks about that, Nikola Tesla. And Hazrat Inayat Khan always knew as well that if you knew the mystery of sound, then you know the mysteries of everything in the universe is accessible through sound. And the Bible says in the beginning was the word. Before there was light, there was a sound. So, and then the beginning of the universe is in Ayurvedic, or not Ayurvedic, but the Hindu traditions. And so I've seen more things come together about the beginning and the power of not sight, but frequencies. I mean, photons are, frequencies too. But anyway, but yeah, frequencies and vibration. And I don't know whether or not that's a computer that's in front of me, where I'm like, what did you say? Lyme disease? Blah, 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 blah. The 454 program. Okay. Hit enter. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Like, maybe that's what it is.
I always used to have, for my own practice, I used to have, like, this vision of, like, so it was like a Reiki table, and on both sides, like, on one side, on the other is, like, big speakers, or like maybe it's a whole thing. Like maybe they're surrounded by speakers, and like it's just this whole vibrational sound experience.
Yeah.
That's always.
Yeah,
I will do it someday.
they have a sound. My brother-in-law built. We built one on a massage table. We literally put speakers in underneath of a massage table, and then hooked that up to a microphone and a looping station. So we would ask people to say into it, "I am love," and then we would turn down all of the treble so it would just bass. It would just be like, or put it on a repeat. And then we would send it through into the speakers. So you would lay on the table
Subliminal.
while your own vibration, I am love, is, and that was really just that was actually just that was the secondary therapy. The primary therapy was we were putting the light in people's face. It was more Roy than my brother-in-law is a genius and taught me many, many things. And yeah, and he was such a great mentor. And so his idea for the way the underneath quickly is a thing now. You know what I mean? You can get the sound chair, and I've sat on one, and they're wild. And now there's a sound bed that you can lay on,
Oh, it's so
and like,
awesome.
yeah. So like those things exist.
I think I told you that my beginning, like my whole awakening experience, really, when I first met you, that was like 2018. Was from the acoustic levitation of water droplet. Yeah, that did it for me. Everything is energy, and like my third eye just blew open. Um, Sound healing has definitely been for me. I feel like it started everything for me, and it's integral into my process and my practice. And it's what I'm writing. Well, I'm not writing my book on sound healing, but it's about music. So, thank you for doing this with me.
Thanks. That's fun.
And for anybody who is looking for you, they can find you where?
As a chiropractor at painreliefcare.net.
And then on YouTube.
Channel number 1 for ASMR is called Chiropractic Medicine. And then the second channel, which is clinical, is called Pain Relief Chiropractic, Dr. Brent. And then the third channel, which is going live this year, is called Chiropractic Care and Education, which is my nonprofit. And then the fourth channel is reserved until all my beard is gray.
And your nonprofit, what does that serve?
People who don't have money and who need chiropractic care.
Awesome.
Bad backs with some kind of financial hardship. People in transition. I have an affinity for single parents because I know how tough that is. And yeah, people who like if you're disabled military, then you don't pay for care in my practice. It's pretty, it's pretty obvious. That's it. You were disabled in military. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need your money. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, hopefully one day my practice is like 50% my nonprofit. I would love to just be nonprofit, but I had to admit that it's difficult to work in nonprofit, as you know, but for different reasons, it's difficult to work in nonprofit.
It is. Yeah. But it is very noble of you to want to do that for people. So, thank you.
Thanks.
And I'll put any links that we have for you when we share that, so everybody can find you.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of All the Things.